I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Growth is not blocked by the world first. It is blocked by the mind. And most people never see it happening. They wake up inside the same patterns. Carry the same fears. Repeat the same habits. And call it life. Years pass like this. Quietly. Fast. The body ages. The mind hardens. And the person starts mistaking routine for identity. That is the trap. Believing the version of you that exists today is the version you are stuck with. But it is not. It never was.
Welcome to True Stoic Journal, the path to inner control.
Most people carry a version of themselves that no longer exists. And yet they obey it every single day. A decision made 10 years ago. Still shaping the present. An old failure still deciding what is attempted and what is avoided. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Every repeated belief stains the mind a little deeper. But if the self was built through repetition, it can be rebuilt the same way. This means the person you are right now is not your final shape. Your fears are not prophecy. Still, people cling to the old self because it explains everything. If a person says, "I have always been anxious," then anxiety becomes expected. The old identity creates a script. And the mind follows it like a machine. But sometimes what looks like honesty is just fear wearing clearer language. That fear has roots. Trauma, humiliation, rejection, loss. A person gets betrayed once and starts believing trust is a weakness. The event ends. But the identity formed around it keeps breathing. Growth starts with awareness. Not motivation, not confidence. You cannot rebuild what you refuse to examine. Viktor Frankl lost everything. Family, freedom, safety, certainty. And yet something remained. Choice. The body can be imprisoned. The world can collapse. But meaning can still be chosen. That is growth under pressure at its most extreme. Now think about resistance. The mind always looks for the easier path first. That is its nature. But growth does not live where comfort lives. It waits just outside it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action. The obstacle itself becomes part of the path. The body is honest about this. Pick up something heavy. And you find your limits instantly. That burn strips away illusion. It reminds you that strength is built through effort, not thought. Fear rarely announces itself loudly. It whispers in practical language. You can start tomorrow. Today has been stressful. That sounds reasonable. That is what makes it dangerous. David Goggins understood this. Obesity, weakness. Failure. A body carrying years of neglect. He chose extreme resistance. He ran when it hurt. He kept going long after comfort disappeared. And his body changed. Because of his relationship with discomfort. Changed first. Resistance does not guarantee success. It guarantees transformation. Now let us talk about pain. Seneca wrote that difficulties strengthen the mind. Much like labor strengthens the body. Pain strips illusion. A person can believe they are strong until loss arrives. Failure is one of the sharpest teachers. It tells you exactly where your limits are. Comfort lets assumptions live. Failure kills them. Look at Abraham Lincoln. Business failure, political defeat. Grief, rejection. Again and again. Each blow could have ended his spirit. But Lincoln kept moving. Kept learning. Kept carrying the weight. And the weight changed him. Pain gave him gravity. It deepened his mind. It sharpened his compassion. Pain is not random. Even when it feels chaotic. It shows where you are fragile. Where your expectations are unrealistic. Where your attachment is excessive. Now consider time. Seneca wrote that it is not that we have little time, but that we waste much of it. The problem is not scarcity. The problem is misuse. Most people live as if tomorrow is guaranteed. They postpone discipline. Postpone the hard conversation. Postpone the dream. And one day they look up. And years have passed. Steve Jobs used mortality as a filter. He said, remembering death was his greatest tool. It removed pride. It removed fear. It cut through distraction. And forced focus on what actually mattered. Memento Mori is not meant to be dark. It is meant to be clarifying. Every hour matters. Every choice matters. Now consider change itself. The world does not slow down for anyone. Heraclitus said no one steps in the same river twice. The river moves. The person moves. Nothing stays still. How many skills that mattered 10 years ago are already fading? A person who refuses to learn new tools, new systems, new ways of thinking, will eventually feel the weight of irrelevance. Nikola Tesla adapted before the world demanded it. His mind stretched into futures no one else could fully see. That is what made him dangerous. Intellectually, he evolved before he had to. The question worth asking yourself is simple. Will you be ready? Or will change arrive while you are still holding onto what used to work? Strength is not built by accident. Zeno of Citium said, well-being is attained little by little. Not in one breakthrough. Through accumulation. The first hour of your day tells you who is actually in command. The mind, or the impulse. Waking early is not about productivity. It is about sovereignty. Can you get out of bed when comfort tells you to stay? Training the body builds more than muscle. It builds consistency. It builds the ability to stay under pressure without breaking. Journaling is not passive. It is confrontation. It is where you meet yourself directly. With no audience. No performance. Silence reveals what noise keeps hidden. Benjamin Franklin tracked his virtues daily. He engineered his character. He did not leave growth to chance. That is what ritual does. It removes negotiation. The system decides. Mood becomes irrelevant. That is real freedom. So what remains? After all of this growth? Strip away the words. Strip away the ideas. What is left is a stronger nervous system. A steadier mind. A person who can stand in chaos without falling apart. Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind. Not outside events. The world will always remain unstable. The only real fortress is the one built within. Brick by brick. Pain laid the foundation. Resistance hardened it. Time gave it urgency. Ritual gave it shape. Look at Thomas Edison. Thousands of failures. Most people would have stopped. Most people would have read failure as judgment. Edison read it as information. That is the growth mindset. In its purest form. Failure stops being personal. It becomes structural. A Stoic who understands this absorbs setbacks differently. A lost opportunity becomes a lesson. A broken plan becomes an adjustment. Not all scars are visible. Some are internal. Losses, betrayals, private battles. no one else ever saw. These scars can either poison the spirit or sharpen it. That depends entirely on how they are carried. To feel deeply and remain standing. To grieve and continue. To lose and still trust life enough to keep moving forward. That takes enormous internal power. And it changes your standards. Once you have survived enough, you begin demanding more from yourself. More honesty. More discipline. More precision. Because you know exactly what weakness costs. You have lived it. Durability is not perfection. It is not invincibility. It is the ability to bend without snapping. To absorb without dissolving. To carry without collapsing. To keep walking while the world keeps shifting beneath you. This is where growth reaches its highest point. You stop seeking an easy life. You start seeking a strong self. A self that remains steady when comfort disappears. A self that keeps its center when everything else moves. Because once that center is built, the world can still shake you, but it cannot own you. If something in this reached you today, share it with someone who is still trapped inside an old version of themselves. Like this video, because this kind of clarity deserves to reach further than it will without your help. And subscribe to True Stoic Journal. Because what comes next goes even deeper into building the self that nothing can break. And it will be waiting in your feed very soon. Remember this. You were never meant to stay who you were yesterday. Growth asks for the death of the familiar self, so that something stronger, steadier and harder to break can finally take its place. That self is already waiting. Build it.